Hello there, Mr. Lee here, and welcome to Pompeii, to the Via dell'Abbondanza, and welcome to the House of Octavius Quartio. The Via dell'Abbondanza, the translation is the streets of abundance. It suggests wealth. It's not a name that the Pompeians would be familiar with, but it's given the name because there's so many shops, so many bars, just like the one here, which is right in front of the House of Octavius Quartio. So perhaps before we make a tour through the house, it'll be good to give you an idea of where exactly the house is within the site of Pompeii.
We're in southern Italy, on the eastern side of the Bay of Naples. The town of Pompeii is south of the volcano of Vesuvius, which ultimately will destroy the town. But in destroying it, it preserves the town for us to explore nowadays and learn more about Roman culture. The house is in the southeastern quarter of the town. It's quite near the amphitheater, and in where its main entrance is on the northern side of the house, it's the Via dell'Abbondanza, the main commercial street of Pompeii. It occupies a whole block of that Pompeian grid street system, which suggests that the owners are quite wealthy, actually. It's just that northeastern side of the block which might be a separate property. The Via dell'Abbondanza was lined with commercial properties, and either side of the front entrance of the House of Octavius Quartio was no exception. In fact, it was in one of these properties that a signet ring was found with the name Octavius Quartio, hence the name. There are benches either side of the front entrance for visitors to wait, or perhaps passers-by just to perch, and it may be for clients in the morning as well. As you come through the front door, you can see straight through into the pseudo-peristyle garden, which we'll come to later. But the first thing you meet is a statue, a bust of which the base remains, and a fountain with a jet water springing forward, surrounded by a flower bed. Either side, in the rooms of the atriums, these rooms would have been used for various purposes, perhaps bedrooms, storage rooms. One particular room is rather well decorated, and perhaps this room might be the study. It certainly has a good view of the atrium, which is full of nature, something that's special in this house. Where you'd expect the study to be, in fact, you pretty much go straight through to the peristyle garden. This peristyle is a bit different to the normal ones. It's colonnade on three sides, but on one side it is open to the rather large garden in this house. That's why it's often called a pseudo-peristyle garden, because it's not quite a true peristyle in shape. A room off its side is the winter dining room. In it are frescoes of Trojan War, including various heroes on both sides, and Hercules, who, in some version of the myths, was participating in the Trojan War. In fact, Hercules pretty much participates in everything. This dining room has a view onto this peristyle garden, but also onto the terrace, which is just above the large garden of this house. There is a little storage room, sort of diagonally opposite, and outside are two frescoes, one of Diana and another one of Actaeon. The myth has Actaeon coming across Diana bathing, and as revenge, Diana sets his hunting dogs on Actaeon himself, transforming Actaeon into a deer so that the dogs think that they're hunting when they're actually getting at their owner. We go alongside the northern side, the house side, if you like, of the terrace, and we come to the center with a clear line down the garden. So there's a canal on the terrace, and the water on the upper canal trickles down, as you see later on, and down the length of the garden. And the garden takes up 2/3 of the length of the whole house itself. It's pretty much pretty large by Pompeian standard. Here you are, so of the view of the canal on one side, Above it are a few wooden frames. This is the pergola, and you might expect climbing plants to be climbing up these frames and providing some sort of shade, not too much, but enough to make it pleasant to be on the terrace. Right, we're going east along the terrace now, following the hunting scenes that are on the fresco on the house side of the terrace, and we come into a rather open space. You might call this the summer dining room, but actually it's quite open onto the terrace. So the hunting scenes lead us visually into this space, and in this space there is a niche with a shrine in the middle, and either side on the back wall there is the myth of Echo and Narcissus on the left-hand side as we see it, and of Pyramus and Thisbe on the right-hand side. Below it, you'd see two sets of benches, again, either side of a central canal, if you like. So the water would come out and it would go away from the picture that we can currently see. And as a dining room, diners would recline on those benches and the water would trickle right in front of them. A rather comforting feeling, I'd like to say. And they would come out again, the water that is onto the canal, and we can see the bit where the water trickles down. On the top, there's a little shaded space where you can look out of the garden in a rather central location. It must be a lovely view. Let's walk down the stairs to discover the rather large garden of this house. As we look back one more time to the house, you can see that at the center of the terrace, there is a four-columned structure. We think that this is a shrine dedicated to the nymphs, called the Nymphaeum. Some say it might also be a shrine dedicated to Diana and Actaeon. It is at this point where the water trickle from the upper canal, the upper Euripus, to the lower canal, the lower Euripus, which runs 50 meters down the length of this part of the garden. Now, a nymphaeum is a shrine dedicated to the water gods, the nymphs, and again, it's another example of how much the owner of the house appreciates nature and all that. Here we can see another nymphaeum actually, midway down the garden, and it was accompanied by a little set of fountains with jets springing out of that rather pyramid-like structure in the middle of the garden. As was mentioned, the lower canal is 50 meters long, and along it you would find a variety of statues, paintings, and pathways that crosses over the canal with a little bridge. The garden is filled with various plants, including acanthus and fruit trees. Here we go through the back entrance of the house. Opposite the house is the large balustra, and in the distance there is the amphitheatre of Pompeii.
Obviously, when you study the house, think about the myth, think about how much the owner of this house might have enjoyed being in nature. But I think part of how he enhances that idea of nature is the fact that this house is a pretty comfortable place to be in the summer. Just think of the wide garden and the fact that from the house you can access it, and how with the pergolas around and all the shades you can really enjoy it in the summer as well. And add to that the trickle of water that comes through. It really makes the place quite cool in the temperature sense. The House of Octavius Quartio occupies about a whole block of this area of Pompeii, and 2/3 of that block, of that area of the house, is this garden that you can see just behind me, and it's fantastic as well. And I think what it tells us, what is so special about this place, is how the block has evolved over time and is actually possible beyond what we study in the course to peel back over time to see how the use of the rooms and how the use of this plot has changed over time. But it's also quite ingenious to notice as well that the canal that comes down from the terrace level down to the garden area, it literally comes down geographically. If you come to see it here, you'd appreciate that. And Pompeii is actually on a slope down this way. It's a fantastic natural area in the back of the house, and I'd recommend you a visit if you ever have the time.